I bought out two partners over the years at a previous agency. Like, that's an M&A transaction.
Yeah. Listen, I did an acquisition when I had my agency, and there was no money out of pocket. It was a commission structure for the next 2 years to the person who she didn't want to run her agency anymore. So I got out of that a book of business. I got into a new vertical, and I got one of my first employees out of it.
I could add as much revenue as like 2 years of sales or 3 years of sales, whatever, in one transaction.
Not everything is millions of dollars, but life-changing is different in different ways for different people. Welcome to Agency Bytes. I'm your host, Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I help agency owners build the business of their dreams. This week on Agency Bytes, I'm joined by Mark Homer, founder of Grandin Holdings. Mark's a serial technology and marketing entrepreneur who's scaled and exited multiple agencies and has spent more than 30 years at the intersection of marketing and tech. From the early days of the World Wide Web to VC-backed startups, SaaS exits, and building category-defining platforms. His most recent agency exit was in the legal marketing space, and he brings a rare, long-view perspective on how agencies evolve, scale, and sell. Mark, thanks for being here today.
Hey, good to see you again, Steve.
Great to see you also. So, a little backstory. I met Mark did I meet you in Austin? Anyway, I met you at an M&A exit lab through mutual contact, Peter Lang, through Digital Agency Business, and super impressed with what your journey in the M&A space has been in the agency space. And so I was really thrilled to get you on here so we can kind of tell some of those stories of what you experienced through M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and buyouts and things like that. And hopefully demystify some of the headspace blockages that agency owners have as they kind of enter into the curiosity phase of M&A, and there's things that pop up like I can't afford to buy or whatever those things are. And so give kind of what your journey has been in the past X amount of years through M&A in the agency space.
Awesome. Yeah, I love sharing. I think once you do enough things wrong and a couple things right, you are able to share a lot of knowledge over the years. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do now. I get on the phone with agency owners all the time, and always an open book to kind of if anybody has questions, whatever, just provide some sounding board for things. M&A is a big area that, I've kind of fallen in love with now. But I think you're right. Yeah, it was very, opaque and mysterious to me until, I kind of got into it and somebody explained to me, it's like, well, you've bought out. I've sold shares of something to a former partner. I bought out two partners over the years at a previous agency. That's an M&A transaction.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean?
Typically, buying out a partner is one of the more hairy transactions you can do.
Yeah, correct. Because there's emotion in there, right? This is because a partner is it's kind of like that business marriage, right? And and so then there's a lot of, well, we know it could be worth this, and it's but it's not worth that now.
Right.
And so it was interesting. Both of those were and ended really well. I mean, I think very fortunate in that. I've heard some horror stories, but both of actually all three, where I sold some shares and the two people I bought out, we're all really good friends today. So that's nice. that went well. But yeah, no, that's an M&A transaction, right? So you're going through you're trying to get a value for something. You're negotiating on what that looks like. You have a integration, right? That what is life after this partner, and now it's just one partner here, or one owner. So all those steps you would go through, other than going to find the agency, it's similar just in that. And a lot of people have gone through that, or aren't scared of that for some reason. But the idea of going and talking to another agency owner about buying their business does seem scary to a lot of people.
Yeah. I guess I don't want to say most recent exit, but the bigger exit that you had from your law firm, marketing firm. You want to talk through what that process was like?
Yeah, that was interesting because I think a lot of agency owners, I was in the grind, right? So I bought a business partner out early on. There was two of us. We carried it for a few years. Then, he kind of wanted to go do other things. And so bought him out and was kind of sole owner there for a while. 12, 13 years, of the grind of the agency owner life, where a lot of time, and you're looking at going, I'm spending too many hours, I'm doing all this stuff, and step back and realize that, okay, I need to get process in place, I need to do this, I need to bring in a salesperson, and actually put some professionalism around the leadership team and the expectations, and we are always going to have profit, not like it suddenly disappears, and all those things we put in place, which were and critical, and enabled me to kind of start stepping up and realize that, wow, like there's other ways to grow a business. And I had read some book. I mean, I think a lot of us like get enamored by M&A, by buy then build.
Yep.
So read that book, which then led me down the path. We both know Peter Lang, so a lot of his materials, went through a lot of his coursework. There was a couple of guys in England I talked to who were doing this a lot, and so kind of educated myself and realized that, well, I could probably do this for G&GF, like the law firm marketing agency I had, and we could grow. Like I got my salesperson who is lead gen is going in, he's selling, the account team is running. Like I'm not doing any of that day-to-day stuff anymore, which took way too long to get to. But once I got there, it's like I could add as much revenue as like 2 years of sales or 3 years of sales, whatever, in one transaction.
Right.
So I started, looking and talking to people, and then I found out that there are people looking to get rid of their agency, like they're stuck, right? And so I went down the path, and I literally had 2 LOIs out. One was pretty far down the negotiation path. The other one, we had decided in due diligence it was with an offshore team. So we were doing a test of in due diligence. So like these were deals, both of them probably, I think would have happened. So as an LOI, then I talked to the person who ultimately acquired me on one of the phone calls as well. But that process of looking and talking to agents, I think the thing that shocked me was when I just started telling people, I didn't, I know we're supposed to follow all the, do all the sourcing, and I do some of that now, and do your 20 deal, calls and work through the sourcing system. I mean, Walker talks about it in his book, Buy Then Build. Peter obviously is very big on programmatic sourcing.
Yep.
I just started talking to my network. I just told people, hey, I'm thinking about buying. But, I know somebody. And, I told the digital agency groups I was in on Slack or Zoom calls we would have, and just, put it out to my network. And I had like a bunch of people come in that way. I watched some of the websites, Merge and things like that too.
Right.
But so I, when I first got into this, I didn't even do all the things you're supposed to do to really get all the lead flow. I just, used our network. I think we have a bigger network than we realize. And once you tell people what you're looking for, one guy came across, he basically was, he was in his 70s, and he had built up these agencies. One he had forever. Somewhere along the way, he got involved in like a majority partner in a legal marketing agency. And so he had these 2 arms, and he's like, they don't really work together well. I kind of need to sell this one, but I also need to sell this one, and they probably can't sell them together. He actually promised his wife and daughter that he would sell the companies in the next day. That was like the thing. It's like, you need to sell this company so you can retire and enjoy your life, right? You've been working too hard, and you want to do all these things. 75, right? And so he's like, I got to sell them. I mean,
His wife was making him sell his businesses. I love it.
Yeah. And so the conversation was, like, just, like how do we value, how do we get to whatever? And, he had, I think, been trying to sell the other one long enough to know that, okay, here's the value range and stuff. And so we got to some numbers pretty quick, but like that was just a network, right? Somebody got introduced me to that person. So there's people out there in that situation. And then the flip side, I on the other one we were talking to, it was offshore. So they were doing essentially like white label paid media work.
Okay.
And so, which was interesting. Actually, it gave me an idea I was thinking about. I'll come back to, but they were doing this, this great white label agency. So agencies were their clients. White label work for agencies for paid media. I'm like, well, great. I can purchase this. The white label business can kind of help fund the deal, and then I can use all these people on the paid media stuff that we're struggling to hire people, in the States. And this was kind of like that just coming out of COVID, when it was like suddenly like it was impossible to hire people and stuff, right?
Sure.
And so So we were looking at that way. And that was somebody who was really young, had built this business kind of like out of college on an accident, and then wanted to go do some like app and some SaaS, thing he had done on the side. And then he had, some people who wanted to work on that. And so he's like, I just need to kind of get rid of this thing. I built it. It's generating revenue, right? So that's two totally opposite sides.
Yeah.
So it's amazing when you step back and kind of go, a lot of people are looking to sell for all different kind of reasons, not the reasons that you're running your business. They're all in different situations. And so if you just step back and talk to a lot of people and listen, you find a lot of opportunities.
It's a great point. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of like just manifesting and speaking into existence of like the things that you want to accomplish and the things that like you have on your, let's say, vision board or your goals or whatever. And when I first started like really dipping my toe into M&A, I started talking about it because I got really excited about it. And literally anybody that I spoke to was like, "Oh yeah, me too," or I'm exploring this, or I hadn't thought about that. And so to your point, like the network that we have, the phrase "your network is your net worth," like there are people in your network who want to do what we're talking about. They just don't know how to get into it. And so the more we talk about it, the more it's like, oh yeah, I've got this, whatever service business or this thing that's doing X amount of dollars, but I've never really thought, how do I get there? And a lot of my clients work towards, I want to have a sellable business. Maybe they do or don't want to sell it once they get there, but a sellable business is just a really attractive thing. So yeah, I mean, you hit on a couple of really good points. One question I've got, jumping back a few thoughts of yours, you put a salesperson in place.
Yeah.
And that's usually, in my experience, one of the last things that an owner either has a hard time letting go of or just a hard time replacing themselves for. And so I'm curious about, at what size were you when you did that? And what were some of the key learning factors in being able to do that?
Yeah. The partner I had, the last partner I had bought out, that was kind of the hat he wore.
Okay.
So we both could close a deal. And by the way, like neither of us were professional salespeople. Like there are professional salespeople, people who get up.
Yeah,
in the
but
morning.
not agency owners.
Agency owners are not correct.
Right.
But we can close a deal because we get to make the rules when you're the agency owner, right? Like, there's no, and, profit ranges and service line. Like it's just, oh, that's what you need. Sure. I'll come up with some statement of work that gets that. And I get your money every month. And for the next so many years, that's great. But my team is now delivering a whole lot of custom things. Right.
Right.
So I had tried that. It was actually the most successful person we had, who, when I sold the business, was running things, he was probably adding, probably 1.5 million a year in revenue, just on his back, with lead flow and a little bit outreach. And he was doing some of the outreach too, which was great. But he, one of the things I did, I failed twice at it, by the way. So, it's not like the first one was awesome, but what I realized was I didn't have a process. And again, it was that owner thing, right? It's like, so I brought in a sales consultant, to help me figure out like what I was doing wrong. And it really came down to that. It's like, you don't, like, I have this, this deck I use, and then I go through this, and he really walked me through it. And so, okay, he made me record calls and listen to them. And he's like, yeah, like everything's different. There's no process. You're not doing all these things, that you should be doing. Like, it's amazing you've sold as much as you had, right? Like that was kind of the painful feedback I got. So then, like he helped me build that process. And then we actually took somebody in the company that didn't want to do this long term, but was willing to kind of step in and say, be the guinea pig of, okay, can you take this and go through the process? And so they improved it. And then it was to the point where it was running better and more effectively with that person who, and by the way, they came out of design world. They just kind of wanted to do their own business. Like this was like an ex-designer, right? And I mean, she was amazing, smart, like more than like she was able to do way more than her initial, what she came into the company for. But yeah, she started doing really well. And he's like, okay, I think you're ready to go hire somebody now. Right. So when we brought somebody in, he's like, okay, you already have processes. And then he improved things over time. But I'd say I was stuck in that, we'd go from like 1 million to like 1.5 to 1.2 to 1.8 to 1.5, and it was always like in that range. And it was, you would have you would lose a certain amount of clients, like no matter how good you were doing, like, we did law firms, right? Law firms would close, it's retire, right? They
Sure.
merge, like you just lose clients for different reasons.
Yeah, natural
Um,
attrition. There's a percentage you
yeah,
can bank on
yeah.
losing every year.
So like the makeup of the sales was really the key predictability. But yeah, once we brought him in, it just things were much more predictable. So
Yeah, interesting. No, I think it's good to share that because again, so many founders are like, yeah, that's the last thing I'm holding on to, or I don't know how to get that off my plate. And I'm glad you kind of reaffirmed what I've been preaching is build a freaking system. And then
yeah,
it doesn't matter. You can plug pretty much anybody into that system. Follow
yeah.
this process, say these things. This is where our leads, this is our ICP, this is our positioning, this is our pricing. Stop making shit up on the fly and you can plug somebody into it. Like as long as they're fairly competent.
Yeah, we were heavy SEO paid media. What we were selling, we had a creative team because it was necessary. Did some brand work early on with people, but like our creative director was essentially able to go in and run the sales system better than I was.
That's
Sales
surprising.
coach and
Yeah.
stuff. And so then, like obviously she didn't want to do that long term, but it was a great test for our system. And then we brought somebody in. But yeah, like systems really matter.
Yeah. So before we hit record, we were talking about your current kind of business structure, the holdco, the agencies you've got in place, and you said a word that I think is a brilliant word. I'm going to probably steal it and use the shit out of it now. Optionality.
Yeah.
And what that means for me is, like I said, a lot of my clients come to me because, oh, Steve, you sold your agency. I want to also sell mine. And what we find is when we do the work to get them into a place where it's a sellable business, it's just a really well-run business and they want to keep doing it. They want to keep, being involved or growing it or whatever. But talk about like what that mindset of optionality meant for you, means for your CEO and like kind of the path forward for you.
Yeah. Just context for those listening. Once I sold GNGF, I took a lot of the capital. I did, I wasn't done. But I didn't want to like be operating more. I got out of the operations of an agency, right? But I was still, owning and CEO and responsible for everything. So I said, okay, I want to come in as an investor, and investor advisor, like what some people call smart money, right? It's like, come in, invest in your agency, provide some of my guidance and stuff and experience there, but also I will focus on using the M&A lever to grow your agency, and we'll get some scalability and predictability. So for optionality, when I come in and talk, it's we try, I want the owner to be very transparent with their team about we're looking to sell someday, and it's not because that's an evil event that's going to happen and everybody's going to lose their job and some big company is going to come and whatever. It's because there is a next best step to meet our vision and mission that requires more resources, more money, bigger, and it's great for their careers, right? So you're going to get to a point here where we're only growing at this much, but your next step is a step that is basically what the CEO is doing, right? Yeah. And so you move into a much bigger organization, those steps now exist, right? So it from a transparency, we're like, let's do all the things in place in the business that provide predictable revenue, great culture, great customer satisfaction, systems and processes. Leaders are actually running the show. The CEO is kind of directing and visionary. Build that system. Then that is all the things that reduce what we would call an M&A, reduce your discount factors to sell, right? So when somebody comes in to buy, they say, oh, okay, we'll buy you for this, this price. Here's about what the market is. Oh, but wait, you've got a big client concentration. Oh, but wait, your team is kind of like, you had a lot of churn there. You had a lot of client churn. You don't have processes in place. You're doing all the sales, Mr. and Mrs. CEO, right? So if you can get rid of all those discount factors, you're getting the maximum value. So it gives you this option, but it also gives you probably a great, happy team, profitable business that you can count on, predictable growth, like options for the team to grow, service line expansion, because you can now invest in R&D, right? All those things that allow you to keep a business for a long term too. So it's that optionality of, for everybody in the business all around.
Yeah. I can't preach that enough. Too many founders are just kind of stuck in it. And some of this, I guess, stuck in it mindset stuff is like, oh, it's quicker, cheaper, easier for me to do it. Or like, I don't know, whatever that thing is. So I'm glad you talked about that. The other thing I really want to dig into, because of your experience, is kind of demystifying some of those like mindset walls that current owners have in place as far as M&A is concerned. Like,
Yeah.
I can't buy, I don't have $1 million in the bank, or um, I don't know. What are some of the challenges that you've seen founders talk about or express that are kind of just mythical, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, in specific to agencies, especially,
Yeah.
right? There's a assumption of, like even M&A is expensive, right?
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to value a company. So there's a lot of that. You can learn that, but you also can pretty quickly get some experts that love doing that. Don't have a network, don't want to actually do a deal, but they love like working the deal, right? Like fractional CFOs, fractional M&A advisors, and things like that. So you can help yourself out there, but in terms of the cost, like it really, like let's go back to that example. It didn't close because I sold the company, but that one agency, it was going to be a little bit of cash down, kind of like a friendly, here's 100 grand, so you can like tell everybody I got cash, like I closed my business and I have a check in the bank. But the business was kind of like pretty flat and there was a couple of down years, and so it's like I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to pay you this much money all every month. So how about once a year we'll write a big check to you for this much money, and if the business performs lower than a certain amount, we have to adjust it. And so that, like a deal like that, right? It's like, okay, I can scrape together 100K. You have a line of credit. Everybody's got a line of credit probably for like at least 100, 150, or you can do a couple of credit cards. And because, by the way, you also get all their working capital on day one, right? So now you have their bank account to pay back that 100K, right? So there's these ways to kind of like play with the numbers to kind of make it very little out of pocket. There's going to be out of pocket. Like the biggest fees, to be honest, you're going to have legal fees. So you are going to have some costs there, but a tough transaction could get to 50 or 60, but a regular asset purchase that these fractional advisors can guide you down, or you can follow some of the books and courses, 25K in legal fees. That's probably and then you actually have now a template to use for the next one, so maybe it's cheaper, right?
Yeah.
So like those deals exist every day and they're done, and the ones that you see like trumpeted, like this sold for this value, whatever, that was like if everything went perfect, that's what the value was going to be. But because of an earnout, because all the things, like the business had to be able to pay for itself. So you're buying businesses in a way that it pays for itself, and as an agency owner trying to buy other agencies, especially once you get to that point, like you talked about, you've got understand your numbers, you've got your systems and processes. If you've kind of gone through some of that homework, you can look at a P&L and a balance sheet for an agency and the business, right? Like you look at 24 months of a P&L, I can tell you the questions we probably want to ask, right? And then you combine that with give me your client list and how much each client's paying you. They say they have recurring revenue and you realize like, oh, well, actually it's like, that's all project work. They just keep coming back for project work. That's not true recurring revenue. So let's play with the numbers a little bit. Let's understand how that looks. And so I'm talking about a lot of things that sound complex, but I don't have an M&A background. I'm not a finance major or whatever, right? I was a developer and a marketer. So, it's not complex and it's not as expensive to do it. But like you could do just one deal with what we call like the term, you've heard of Steve, right? Of acqui-hire, right? So you're running, let's say you're just $1 million agency, not anything, great. Like, like a lot of people can get to $1 million, almost at a freelance level, you can almost get there, right?
Sure.
We're in $1 million agency. You find somebody that is just killing it in this service line. That's not, and maybe they're running kind of something similar. They're one person with a couple freelancers, but they've got some great clients. And man, if you had what they could serve to your current clients, you'd be able to sell at least 20% of your clients on that thing. And you could talk to them and say, hey, you find out that they're kind of hating running the agency. They like doing the work, and these people exist. Like you go out and talk to more agency owners, you realize there's people who are like, I don't like running it. I kind of accidentally ran it because I didn't like working for the big company.
Yeah.
But if I could work in here and just do what I do really well, you buy them essentially on like a commission structure, right? You give them a nice little check in the beginning and then say, okay, all the deals that you work on for your current clients, we'll just keep paying you a small commission. Like these are the type of creative structures that are probably 70% of deals.
Yeah.
The ones you always hear about, the big dollars and this person made this much money. Those are the ones everybody trumpets. Those are the ones everybody gets on the podcast and talk about. That yeah, people don't get online and say, I sold my company for essentially $5,000 in the hope for income and a commission check. But man, I don't have to run the company anymore, right? Like you don't hear those people trumpeting on the podcast, but they're happy as can be. So.
Yeah. Listen, I did an acquisition when I had my agency, and there was no money out of pocket. It was a commission structure for the next 2 years to the person who she didn't want to run her agency anymore. So I got out of that a book of business. I got into a new vertical, and I got one of my first employees out of it. It was a no-brainer. And I've said this a million times. I kick myself for not understanding that should have been a programmatic thing I could have done over and over and over again. Yeah. In my mind, it was a one and done thing. And my exit wasn't life-changing money. It wasn't on the cover of Forbes or anything like that, but it was life-changing from a lifestyle standpoint. The money was good, and it was, a 2-year earnout after that initial chunk, and I was super grateful to be able to do it. So yeah, not everything is millions of dollars, but life-changing is different, in different ways for different people. So
yeah, if we get back together and chat another time on a podcast, I think the other side of it is like what I would tell people is, okay, now what are you trying to build toward and work back? And like, because there's I can run my agency, it'll be a little bit bigger, I'll make more profit and stuff. And then there's, what is that optionality that we talked about for like taking it to the next level and having somebody come now buy you with real institutional type money, which may actually have larger cash on close, slightly larger valuations and stuff, but your agency needs to be at a certain level, like all the things we talked about. But that'd be interesting to talk about too. But that's a whole nother thing. And that's what I do every day, right? I get on the phone with agency owners. I'm like an open book to try to just chat with them and say, like, how can I help? And then some of them, they might be interested in having part of their agency purchased or invested in. They might be a good tuck in for something we're building, right? So you never know. That's why I love getting on the phone with everybody. But yeah, most of the time it's just a really good conversation, and I add to my network and hopefully help people out.
Yeah, I love that. I'm the same way. I probably speak to 20 agency owners a week, and I love learning. I love getting my finger on the pulse of like what is going on from biz dev, from team creative development, things like that. And so I think we're very much aligned there as well. I want to wrap up, throw some random rapid fire questions at you. The first is early internet days or today's AI boom, which felt more wild in real time to you?
Well, yeah, I think I was in the thick of it on the early internet days. VC backed startup, I spent, 20, 30, $40 million of somebody else's money and had nothing to show for it at the end of 2002. So yeah, I was in the thick of it in San Francisco during that phase. So, that was pretty crazy. I still think that was a bigger boom than what we're gonna see. I think AI is gonna change a lot.
Yeah,
but it's a big growth on top of something that was already finally happened, right? Once we kind of decentralized control of things with the internet, it just opened up the playbooks for everybody.
Yeah, I also think that was, the earlier days were more bubbly than what we're doing now. So yeah. What's an agency habit that you had early in your career that kind of you look back and you laugh at it now?
Oh gosh. Having the idea of like managing my team by just walking around and knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Instead of managing through numbers and having them report up to me, like what they think's going right, and wrong.
Interesting. Yeah. And then finally, what's a piece of advice that you confidently gave earlier in your career that you definitely would take back today?
That's a good one. I think I was given this advice, like at a college. Yeah, I worked for like IBM and Ernst & Young and these kind of companies. But it was like, oh, you should show up before the boss and leave after them because it was very much a perception thing. But once I got into like numbers and metrics and stuff, like it was just clear who was crushing it, whether they showed up early or not.
Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, time at your desk doesn't really equate to the success of it. Yeah.
Well, especially now these days, right? Like, yeah, I don't even know when people show up because it's all virtual.
True. Mark, I am super grateful for our time together again today. Thank you for joining us, sharing your experience, super valuable M&A experience. We'll talk again soon, man. Thank you again.
Excellent. Thanks,
Bye,
Steve.
brother.